The discovery of the sword. The barren planet of Stylox was known as the graveyard of the ancients. Its surface was a wasteland of jagged rocks and shifting sandstorms. Few dared to venture there, but those who did spoke of strange ruins and ancient relics buried in its depths. The most intriguing of these stories centered around a mysterious sword, said to be embedded in a massive rock in the heart of the desert. Legends spoke of the Heart of Eternity, an alien blade so powerful that it could change the fate of galaxies. No one knew who had crafted it or why, but it was said that no creature, no matter how strong or advanced, had ever been able to move it. The sword had become a symbol of ultimate power, calling out to those who dared to try their luck. A team of researchers from across the galaxy had assembled to investigate the rumors. The group was diverse: aliens with glowing skin, towering insectoids, and even humans. Among them was a young human engineer named Alex Carter, a quiet and unassuming man in his late 20s. Alex wasn't a soldier or a scientist. He had joined the team to maintain their equipment, not to chase legends. The landing site buzzed with activity as the team set up their camp. Machines hummed, drones flew overhead, and scanners beeped as they searched for the sword. Alex stayed on the sidelines, fixing a broken energy scanner while listening to the chatter around him. Why would anyone think a human could lift it? One of the alien researchers, a reptilian called Dr. Krathis, sneered. "Your species is barely out of the Stone Age compared to us." Alex kept his head down, pretending not to hear the insult. He was used to it. Humans were often seen as the underdogs in the galactic community. They lacked the physical strength of the Drexorians, the intelligence of the Silicans, and the advanced technology of the Marathons. Still, Alex had learned to let the words roll off his back. He was here to do his job, nothing more. Hours later, the scanners finally detected a strong energy signature deep in the desert. Excitement rippled through the camp as the team hurried to investigate. Alex tagged along, trailing behind the others as they approached a massive stone formation that jutted out of the ground like a jagged tooth. And there it was, the sword. It was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. The blade shimmered with a silvery glow, almost as if it were alive. Strange alien symbols were etched along its surface, pulsing faintly with light. The hilt was intricately designed, its material unidentifiable, and it emitted a faint hum, like a heartbeat. The lead scientist, a Marathon named Professor Zilra, stepped forward with wide, eager eyes. "This is it," she whispered, "the Heart of Eternity." One by one, members of the team tried to lift the sword. A Drexorian warrior, towering and muscular, grunted as he gripped the hilt and pulled with all his might. The sword didn't budge. A Silican researcher used telekinesis, focusing all her mental energy, but the blade remained still. Even the advanced machines the team brought couldn't lift it. "It's impossible," Dr. Krathis said, frustrated. "This thing defies every law of physics." Alex watched silently as each attempt failed. A strange feeling stirred inside him, curiosity, mixed with something he couldn't quite define. He took a cautious step closer, his boots crunching against the rocky ground. The sword seemed to hum louder as he approached, but he quickly shook off the thought. It was just his imagination. "Don't bother, human," Dr. Krathis sneered. "This is far beyond your capabilities." Alex hesitated, then stepped back, not wanting to draw attention to himself. As the team argued about what to do next, a sudden noise cut through the air, a deep, rumbling growl. Everyone froze. From the horizon, a group of alien warriors emerged, their armor glinting under the harsh sun. Their leader, a Drexorian warlord named Commander Vrylock, stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with greed as he looked at the sword. "This belongs to the Drexorian Empire," Vrylock declared, his voice booming. "Stand aside, or be destroyed." Chaos erupted as the researchers scrambled for cover. Vrylock's soldiers raised their weapons, and energy blasts lit up the sky. Alex ducked behind a boulder, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't a fighter, but he knew he couldn't just sit there. Grabbing his portable toolkit, Alex activated his personal drone, Jax, a small spherical bot with a snarky personality. "What's the plan, boss?" Jax asked, its mechanical voice calm despite the chaos. "We need to get out of here," Alex said. "But first, we have to warn the others." As the battle raged on, Alex and Jax weaved through the rocks, avoiding the crossfire. The sword stood untouched in the center of the chaos, glowing brighter with each passing moment. For a brief second, Alex felt its hum again, louder this time, as if it were calling out to him. He shook his head, focusing on the task at hand. Whatever the sword was, it wasn't his concern. Or so he thought. But deep down, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The sword had been waiting for centuries, waiting for someone worthy to wield it, and whether he liked it or not, Alex was now part of the story, the legend behind the sword. Alex Carter stared at the faintly glowing blade as the Drexorian warlord's soldiers roared commands in the distance. He had managed to escape the ambush alongside his loyal drone, Jax, and now found himself inside a crumbling alien structure a few miles away from the chaos. The air inside was thick with dust, and faint blue light from his wrist scanner illuminated strange markings on the walls. Jax hovered beside him, scanning the area. "You know, most humans would be hiding under a rock right now. But not you. You're hiding in one. Bold move, boss." Alex ignored the jab and studied the carvings. They were ancient, written in a language he couldn't recognize but oddly felt drawn to. It was the same feeling he'd had when standing near the sword. A low hum, almost like a whisper at the edge of his mind. "These symbols," Alex muttered, running his fingers over the grooves. "They feel connected to the sword." "Great observation, Sherlock," Jax quipped. "Maybe we can read the part where it says, 'Don't touch the glowing death blade.'" Alex didn't laugh. Something about the place felt sacred, like the walls themselves were alive with history. He activated his translator, and the wrist scanner projected holographic text in front of him. The words slowly reshaped themselves into galactic common, and Alex began to read. "The heart of eternity is not a weapon. It is a test. Only those who embody the virtues of unity, sacrifice, and courage may wield its power. To all others, it shall remain still, a silent guardian of the truth." Alex frowned. "It's a test, not just some artifact of power." Jax beeped. "A test that no one's passed, apparently. And judging by those Drexorian methods outside, they're not here to take any pop quizzes." The next line caught Alex's eye. "Beware the unworthy. For to force the heart is to awaken the wrath of its creators." His stomach churned at the warning. He thought back to the Drexorian warlord, Commander Frylock, and his soldiers. They wouldn't stop until they claimed the sword, no matter the cost. And if these carvings were right, their greed could unleash something far worse than a galactic war. As Alex read further, the carvings shifted in tone, describing the sword's origin. It was forged by an ancient civilization known as the Erithar, a species long thought extinct. The Erithar were believed to have mastered both science and spirituality, blending the two in ways that modern species could only dream of. The heart of eternity was their final creation, a beacon of hope meant to unite the galaxy. "Unite the galaxy," Alex repeated under his breath. "They made it to bring people together, not tear them apart." Jax whirred thoughtfully. "Well, so far, all it's done is attract every greedy species in the galaxy. Mission accomplished, huh?" Before Alex could respond, the ground trembled beneath his feet. Dust rained from the ceiling as a deep, guttural roar echoed through the ruins. Jax's sensors flashed red. Boss, I think we've got company." From the shadows of the structure, an enormous alien automaton lumbered forward, its body covered in glowing runes similar to the ones on the walls. Its eyes locked onto Alex, and a booming voice resonated through the chamber. "Intruder detected. State your purpose." Alex's mouth went dry. I'm just here to learn about the sword. I mean no harm." The automaton paused, scanning him with a beam of light. "You seek the heart of eternity." "Yes," Alex admitted, his voice trembling. "But not for power. I just want to stop the Drexorians from taking it." The automaton's glowing eyes flickered. "Few have sought the heart for noble reasons. Fewer still have survived the trial. Do you believe yourself worthy, human?" Alex hesitated. Worthy? He wasn't a hero. He was just a mechanic with a knack for fixing broken things. But as he thought about the Drexorians and the destruction they would bring, he felt a spark of resolve. "I don't know if I'm worthy," he said honestly. "But if stopping them means trying, then I'll do it." The automaton seemed to consider his words before stepping aside, revealing a hidden staircase that spiraled downward. "Then the truth of the heart shall reveal itself to you. But be warned, the trial is not for the faint of heart. Proceed and face the will of the Erithar." Alex swallowed hard, his palms sweaty. "Well, Jax, looks like we're going down." Jax let out a nervous beep. "Great. Let's just hope the trial doesn't involve anything that wants to eat us." Together, they descended into the unknown, the weight of the sword's legend pressing down on Alex's shoulders. What lay ahead was a mystery, but one thing was certain: the heart of eternity was far more than just an ancient relic. It was a challenge, and Alex was about to face it head-on. The Drexorian threat. The Drexorian warship loomed over the desert, like a predator circling its prey, its sleek, jagged hull reflecting the planet's harsh sun. Inside, Commander Vrylok paced the command deck, his piercing, reptilian eyes fixed on a hologram of the sword. His massive frame, clad in dark crimson armor, radiated power and menace. "This blade," he growled, pointing a clawed finger at the projection, "will secure our empire's dominance for generations. No one will stand in our way." Around him, his crew of scaled warriors echoed their agreement with guttural roars. The Drexorians were not known for their subtlety, and their intentions were clear. They would claim the heart of eternity, no matter the cost. But they had a problem. The sword was unmoving, and every attempt to extract it by force had failed. Energy blasts, plasma drills, even focused gravitational pulses, all had been useless. The blade remained embedded in its stone pedestal, unyielding and untouched. Vrylok's second-in-command, a smaller but equally cunning Drexorian named Sub-Commander Krax, stepped forward. "Commander, our scans show that the blade reacts faintly to certain energy signatures. We believe it resonates with biological elements." "Biological?" Vrylok's lip curled in disgust. "You mean one of these weakling researchers could be the key?" Krax nodded. "Possibly. We captured several during our initial assault. Perhaps one of them holds the key to unlocking its power." Vrylok's grin widened, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. "Then we shall find out. Bring them to me." Meanwhile, Alex Carter crouched behind a jagged boulder, watching the Drexorian soldiers march their prisoners across the desert. His heart sank as he recognized some of the researchers from his team, their hands bound and expressions filled with fear. The Drexorians had rounded them up like livestock, dragging them toward the sword's resting place. Jax hovered beside him, its sensors glowing faintly. "This doesn't look good, boss. Those scaly goons aren't known for their hospitality." Alex clenched his fists. He wasn't a fighter, but he couldn't just sit there and do nothing. His mind raced, trying to come up with a plan. The Drexorians had numbers, firepower, and brutal strength. All Alex had was a toolkit and a smart-mouthed drone. "What do you suggest, Jax?" Alex whispered. "Walk up to them and ask nicely." "Well, you could always distract them with your charm," Jax replied. "Or, we could try not dying and sneak around." Alex rolled his eyes but knew the drone was right. Direct confrontation was out of the question. He needed to find a way to free the prisoners without getting himself captured, or worse. As the Drexorians reached the sword's location, Vrylok stepped forward, towering over the researchers. His voice boomed like thunder. "One of you pathetic creatures will unlock the power of the heart. If you succeed, you may live. If you fail, you will serve as an example of what happens to those who defy the Drexorian Empire." The researchers exchanged nervous glances, none daring to move. Vrylok's patience wore thin. He grabbed a frail Xylocan scientist and shoved her toward the sword. "You. Try now." The Xylocan trembled as she reached out to touch the hilt. The sword glowed faintly for a moment before a sudden pulse of energy knocked her back, sending her sprawling to the ground. Vrylok roared in frustration. "Next," he barked, his claws twitching with barely contained rage. From his hiding spot, Alex watched the scene unfold, his mind churning with ideas. The sword clearly rejected those who approached it, but why? What made someone worthy? And why had it glowed faintly when he was near it earlier? "Jax," Alex whispered, "I think the sword might react to intent, not strength." "Great theory," Jax replied. "You planning to test it while Mr. Reptile Rage is watching?" "Not yet," Alex said, his eyes narrowing. "First, we need a diversion." Scanning the area, Alex noticed the Drexorian supply crates stacked near their transport. Among them were fuel cells, volatile and highly explosive. A risky idea formed in his mind. "Jax, can you hack one of their supply drones? Cause a little chaos." Jax's lens blinked in amusement. "I thought you'd never ask." The drone zipped off, its small frame blending into the chaotic scene. Moments later, one of the Drexorian supply drones began to whir uncontrollably, its engines sparking. It shot toward the fuel cells, colliding with a fiery explosion that sent debris flying. The soldiers scrambled, barking orders, and trying to contain the chaos. In the confusion, Alex sprinted toward the prisoners, keeping low and out of sight. His heart pounded as he reached them, using his multi-tool to quickly cut their restraints. "Stay quiet and follow me," Alex whispered urgently. The researchers nodded, their fear overridden by the glimmer of hope. As the group slipped away, Vrylok's roar echoed through the air. "Find them. Do not let them escape." The chase was on, and Alex knew they wouldn't have much time. But as they fled into the rocky terrain, a thought lingered in his mind. The sword was more than just a relic. It was waiting for something, or someone, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow connected to it. For now, survival was the priority. But deep down, Alex knew his journey with the heart of eternity was far from over. The human attempt. The air around the sword was electric, humming with an otherworldly energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Alex Carter's own heartbeat. He stood at the edge of the clearing, hidden behind a jagged boulder, watching as the Drexorians made yet another futile attempt to lift the blade. Each time one of them grasped the hilt, the sword emitted a sharp pulse of light, violently rejecting them. Commander Vrylok's fury was palpable. His growls reverberated through the air as he barked orders to his soldiers. "Idiots, how can you be so useless? The heart of eternity is the key to our conquest, and you let it mock us." Alex's grip on his multi-tool tightened as he observed the scene. He had already managed to free most of the researchers and send them toward the hidden ruins for safety. Now it was just him, his loyal drone Jax, and the overwhelming presence of the Drexorian forces. "You're thinking about trying it, aren't you?" Jax whispered, its lens swiveling to focus on Alex. The small drone hovered nervously beside him, scanning the area for threats. "Let me just remind you that every single person who's touched that thing has either failed or gotten electrocuted." Alex sighed, his gaze fixed on the glowing blade. "I know, but there's something about it, Jax. When I was near it earlier, I felt something." "Yeah, probably your survival instincts telling you to stay away from the angry lizard people," Jax quipped. "Look, I'm all for you being the hero, but maybe we wait for the part where the bad guys are asleep." Before Alex could respond, a new commotion erupted near the sword. A Drexorian scientist had rolled out a heavy, cylindrical device, a portable energy disruptor. The machine hummed ominously as it powered up, its focus directed at the stone holding the sword. "They're going to destroy the entire structure." Alex hissed under his breath. The disruptor's energy was notoriously unstable, and using it here could have catastrophic consequences. "That's not just a structure," Jack said. "It's a bomb waiting to go off. The sword might survive, but everything else, not so much." Alex made a decision. "I have to stop them." "Fantastic. And how exactly do you plan to do that?" Jax asked, sarcasm dripping from its synthetic voice. "Walk up and politely ask them to quit." "No," Alex said firmly, stepping out of the shadows. "I'm going to do what they can't." The moment Alex entered the clearing, all eyes turned to him. The Drexorians froze in shock, and for a brief second, the only sound was the hum of the disruptor. Then Commander Vraylock's booming laughter shattered the silence. "A human?" Vraylock sneered, stepping forward. His towering form cast a long shadow over Alex. "You dare show yourself here? Do you think you can challenge me?" "I'm not here to challenge anyone," Alex said calmly, though his legs felt like they might give out any second. "But that disruptor is going to kill us all if you keep using it." Vraylock's grin widened, baring his sharp teeth. "And what do you propose, little human? That I stop my plans because you ask nicely?" Alex took a deep breath. "No, I'll lift the sword." The clearing erupted in laughter, the Drexorian soldiers jeering and mocking him. Vraylock's grin faded, replaced by a cold, calculating glare. "You? Lift the heart of eternity. Do you even know what you're saying, human?" "I do," Alex said, stepping closer to the sword. The energy in the air intensified, the hum growing louder. "And if I fail, you can do whatever you want. But if I succeed, you leave. All of you." The challenge hung in the air, and for a moment, Vraylock seemed to consider it. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. Let the human amuse us. But know this, when you fail, I will personally crush you." Alex approached the sword, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. The blade seemed to glow brighter as he neared, its hum turning into a deep, resonant vibration. He could feel the weight of its presence, as if it were alive and watching him. "Alex," Jax whispered from the edge of the clearing. "I really hope you know what you're doing." "So do I," Alex muttered. He reached out, his hand trembling as his fingers wrapped around the hilt. The moment he touched it, a surge of energy shot through him. Not painful, but overwhelming, like a tidal wave of light and sound. Images flashed in his mind. Ancient civilizations, battles, and a vision of the galaxy united under a single banner. The sword began to glow fiercely, and the ground beneath it cracked. The Drexorians stepped back in shock as the blade slowly lifted from the stone, as if responding to Alex's presence. His grip tightened, and he raised it high, the blade shining like a star. For a moment, everything was still. Then, with a deafening roar, the disruptor exploded, its energy redirected by the sword's power. The blast knocked everyone off their feet, but when the dust cleared, Alex stood tall, the glowing blade in his hand. The Drexorians stared in stunned silence, their fear and awe palpable. Vraylock growled, his claws twitching, but even he dared not challenge the human now. Alex pointed the sword at the commander. "You agreed. Leave now or face the consequences." Vraylock hesitated, then snarled and turned away. "This isn't over, human. You may have the sword, but you haven't won." As the Drexorians retreated, Alex felt the weight of the sword in his hand, not just its physical weight, but the responsibility it carried. Whatever came next, he knew his life would never be the same. A test of worth. The sword pulsed with a strange, rhythmic energy in Alex Carter's hand, a force that seemed to synchronize with his heartbeat. It wasn't heavy, at least, not in the way he expected. Instead, it felt alive, as if it were testing him with every second he held it. The Drexorians had retreated, but Alex's victory was far from complete. The ground beneath his feet began to tremble. Ancient runes on the sword's hilt lit up, glowing in cascading patterns of gold and blue. The whispers returned, louder now, forming words that echoed in his mind. The trial begins. Prove your worth or be consumed. Alex stumbled back as the ground split open, revealing the hidden chamber below. A spiral staircase carved from crystal descended into the earth, glowing faintly. The message was clear. This was his next step. Boss. Jax hovered nervously beside him. The glowing sword that talks to you is now opening hidden stairs to who knows where. Should we, I don't know, not go down there? We don't have a choice, Jax, Alex said, gripping the sword tighter. If this thing really is a test, I need to finish it. The Drexorians will come back, and we need to be ready. Jax beat skeptically, but followed as Alex stepped onto the first crystal stair. Each step felt like entering a different world. The air grew cooler, charged with an unexplainable energy. The walls of the chamber were etched with glowing glyphs, their meanings just out of reach, yet familiar. It was as if the sword was translating for him, feeding him fragments of knowledge from an ancient civilization long gone. As Alex reached the bottom, the staircase vanished, sealing him inside a vast circular room. The walls shimmered with images of the Irithar, the long-lost creators of the sword. They were tall, ethereal beings with flowing forms that seemed to blend into light itself. Their expressions were serene but commanding, their eyes glowing with wisdom. In the center of the room stood 3 pedestals, each holding an object: a shattered shield, a broken spear, and a small, dimly glowing orb. Above the pedestals, glowing text appeared, and Alex read it aloud. Choose the path you value most: protection, power, or knowledge. The sword in Alex's hand hummed, as if urging him to choose wisely. His mind raced. What did the Irithar value most? What did they consider worthiness? Protection, power, or knowledge? Alex muttered. This has to be part of the test. Jax floated closer, scanning the objects. Careful, boss. This feels like one of those traps where you pick the wrong thing, and suddenly you're dinner for whatever made this place. Alex closed his eyes, thinking back to the carvings he had seen in the ruins. The Irithar didn't just create the sword to empower someone. They created it to unite, to bring hope, to restore balance. Slowly, he reached out and touched the shattered shield. The moment his fingers brushed the relic, the room transformed. The walls dissolved into a blinding white light, and Alex found himself standing on a battlefield. It wasn't just any battlefield. It was the same vision he had seen earlier. Alien armies clashed in brutal combat, entire civilizations caught in the chaos. The cries of the wounded and the roar of explosions filled the air. In the center of the chaos stood a towering figure wielding the heart of eternity. The blade glowed fiercely as the figure fought to protect a group of terrified refugees. But no matter how hard they fought, the figure was overwhelmed, eventually falling to their knees. Suddenly, the vision shifted. The battlefield faded, replaced by the ruins of Dialogues. This time, it was Alex standing before the sword, but instead of soldiers, he saw his own team: scientists, engineers, people who had trusted him. They were surrounded by Drexorians, their fate resting on Alex's decision. A voice echoed in his mind, the same one from before. Strength alone cannot protect. Knowledge alone cannot unite. Sacrifice is the only true path to worthiness. What will you give to save them? Alex's grip on the sword tightened as he realized the truth of the test. It wasn't about defeating enemies or proving power. It was about putting others above himself, about being willing to risk everything for the greater good. I'll give whatever it takes, Alex said, his voice steady. The light around him dimmed, and he was back in the circular chamber. But this time, the glowing orb from the pedestal floated toward him, merging with the blade. The sword's hum grew deeper, resonating with a power that felt both overwhelming and comforting. Symbols danced across its surface, and Alex instinctively knew that he had passed the first trial. Jax floated closer, its lens wide with awe. Well, that wasn't terrifying at all. So, what now? Did you just unlock level 2 of the galaxy's most dangerous weapon? Alex smiled faintly, though the weight of the moment still pressed on him. I think I just proved I'm willing to try. As the chamber began to shift, revealing yet another passageway, Alex realized his journey was far from over. But for the first time, he felt a spark of hope. The sword wasn't just testing him, it was preparing him. And whatever came next, he was ready to face it. The final stand. The horizon burned crimson as the Drexorian warships descended like vultures. Their engines roared, and the shadow of their massive fleet stretched across the barren sands of Xylox. Commander Vrylock, standing at the bridge of his flagship, grinned as he watched his soldiers prepare for the final assault. "The sword may glow for the human," he growled, his claws scraping the metal railing, "but no blade can stand against the firepower of the Drexorian Empire." Below, Alex Carter stood alone in the vast expanse of the desert, the heart of eternity glowing brilliantly in his hand. The sword felt lighter now, as if it had become an extension of his body. Its energy coursed through him, filling him with a strange, almost overwhelming sense of clarity and purpose. Beside him hovered Jax, its usual sarcastic tone replaced by an uncharacteristic quiet. "You know this is insane, right?" Jax finally said, breaking the silence. "One human against an entire fleet. I've seen better odds in junkyard lotteries." Alex smiled faintly. "Yeah, but those odds didn't come with a sword like this." The air shimmered around him as the sword's glow intensified, the ancient Erithar glyphs etched into its blade radiating with power. Alex closed his eyes, letting the weapon guide him. Visions flickered in his mind, glimpses of battles long past, where warriors wielded the heart of eternity not as a weapon of destruction, but as a shield for the innocent. Unity, sacrifice, courage. Alex murmured, repeating the words that had been etched into his mind since the trial. This sword wasn't made to conquer, it was made to protect. As the Drexorian soldiers advanced, their ranks shimmering with energy shields and plasma weapons, Alex raised the sword. A wave of light erupted from its blade, forming a protective barrier around him. The first wave of Drexorian fire struck the shield and dispersed harmlessly, sending ripples of energy across the desert. Vrylock's voice boomed through the comm systems of his soldiers. "Do not falter. Overwhelm him. The sword's power is finite." Alex's heart raced as the soldiers encircled him. The barrier held, but he knew it wouldn't last forever. He had to do more than defend. He had to end this before the Drexorians destroyed the planet, or worse, claimed the sword. "Jax," Alex called out, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I need you to find the fleet's command node. If we can disable it, we might have a chance." Jax hesitated. "That's a suicide mission, boss. They'll fry me the second I get close." "Not if I keep them busy," Alex said, his grip on the sword tightening. "Trust me." The drone beeped nervously but zipped off into the fray. Alex turned his attention back to the advancing Drexorians. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, lowering the barrier. The soldiers surged toward him, but the sword's energy flared, sending out a pulse that knocked them back. The sword didn't just cut, it moved like a living entity, anticipating Alex's every thought. It guided his strikes, creating shockwaves that disarmed enemies without killing them. Each swing was precise, purposeful, and strangely peaceful. Alex realized the sword wasn't designed to take lives, but to neutralize threats and protect. High above, Jax navigated through the chaos, dodging laser fire and Drexorian drones. The fleet's command node was heavily guarded, But Jax was faster and smaller than anything the Drexorians had anticipated. It hacked into the node's systems, downloading critical data and planting a virus to disable their fleet-wide communications. Almost there, Jax muttered, its circuits working overtime. Just keep holding the line, boss. On the ground, Alex faced Commander Vraylock himself. The Drexorian warlord was a towering figure, his crimson armor glowing with built-in energy shields. He wielded a massive energy hammer, its weight shaking the ground with every swing. You think you're worthy of that sword, human? Vraylock sneered, advancing on Alex. You're nothing but a speck in the grand design of the galaxy. Alex sidestepped a powerful swing, the hammer smashing into the ground and leaving a crater. Being worthy isn't about what you are, Alex said, his voice steady. It's about what you're willing to do. The two clashed, the air around them crackling with energy. Vraylock's raw strength was overwhelming, but Alex's movements were fluid, guided by the heart of eternity. The sword's light intensified with each strike, its energy countering Vraylock's brute force. The Drexorian warlord roared in frustration. This sword belongs to the strong. You can't stop us. Alex blocked a powerful blow, the impact sending shockwaves through the desert. It doesn't belong to anyone, he said, his voice resolute. It's meant to protect everyone. In a final, desperate move, Vraylock lunged at Alex, but the sword's energy surged, enveloping the warlord in a blinding light. When the glow faded, Vraylock was on his knees, his weapon shattered, his arrogance replaced by stunned silence. Above, Jax completed its mission. The Drexorian fleet systems shut down, leaving their ships dead in the sky. The soldiers on the ground, cut off from their command, began retreating in disarray. Alex lowered the sword, exhaustion washing over him. The battlefield was quiet now, the Drexorian threat neutralized. Jax returned, its lens cracked but still functional. Mission accomplished, the drone said, its tone weary but triumphant. Alex smiled faintly, looking at the glowing blade in his hand. The sword's hum had quieted, its energy now a calm, steady presence. It had chosen him not for his strength, but for his willingness to protect and unite. As the sun set over the desert, Alex knew this was just the beginning. The heart of eternity had proven its power, but its purpose was far greater than stopping a single war. It was a beacon of hope, a reminder of what the galaxy could achieve if it stood together. And Alex was ready to carry that message forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The legacy of the sword. The desert of Dilox was silent once more. The Drexorian fleet, once a towering shadow of destruction, was now a scattering of broken and retreating ships. The heart of eternity rested quietly in Alex Carter's hand, its glow subdued but steady, as though it too was catching its breath after the battle. Jax hovered beside him, its lens cracked but flickering with pride. Well, boss, looks like you didn't just survive. You actually won. Who knew? Alex chuckled softly, though the weight of the moment still pressed heavily on him. It wasn't just me, Jax. The sword. It wanted to protect, not destroy. It did most of the work. Don't sell yourself short, Jax replied. You were the one crazy enough to pick it up. The surviving researchers, freed from the Drexorians' clutches, approached cautiously. Their expressions ranged from awe to disbelief as they looked at Alex and the glowing blade. Professor Zilra, the Marathon scientist who had led the expedition, stepped forward. Carter, she began, her voice trembling. What you've done here, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. You've not only saved us, but proven something about humanity that most of us never believed. Alex shook his head. It wasn't about humanity, Professor. It was about what's right. The sword doesn't care where you're from or what you are. It cares about what you're willing to fight for. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the ruins of Dilox, Alex stood before the stone where the heart of eternity had rested for centuries. The sword pulsed faintly in his hand, as if urging him toward one final act. "You're putting it back, aren't you?" Jax asked, its tone quieter than usual. Alex nodded. The sword wasn't meant to belong to anyone. It's not a weapon for one person to wield. It's a guide for when the galaxy needs it most. With deliberate care, Alex placed the heart of eternity back into the stone. The ground trembled slightly as the blade sank into place, its glow fading until it was no brighter than the faintest star. The hum that had followed Alex since he first touched the sword was gone, replaced by a profound silence. The researchers watched in solemn reverence. Even Jax, known for its endless quips, stayed quiet. Days later, the story of the battle spread across the galaxy. News of the Drexorian defeat and the mysterious human who had wielded the heart of eternity reached every corner of the known universe. But Alex had already slipped into anonymity, returning to the quiet life he had always known. Back on Earth, Alex stood in a small workshop, repairing a broken solar panel. Jax hovered nearby, muttering about rusted tools and outdated tech. "You know," Jax said, breaking the silence, "you could have been a galactic celebrity. Hero of the galaxy, savior of worlds. People would have lined up to hear your story." Alex grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "I don't need the attention, Jax. The galaxy doesn't need a hero. It needs hope. The sword will be there if it's ever needed again. That's enough for me." Jax beeped thoughtfully. "Still, you'd think the least they could have done is send a thank you fruit basket or something." Alex laughed, the sound echoing through the workshop. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of peace. The heart of eternity had chosen him, not because he was special, but because he was willing to stand when it mattered most. That was the legacy he wanted to carry forward, not as a hero, but as a reminder that even the smallest acts of courage could change everything. As he looked out at the sky, where the stars shimmered like distant promises, Alex knew his journey wasn't over. Somewhere out there, the heart of eternity rested, waiting for the next time it would be needed. And when that day came, he had no doubt the galaxy would find someone worthy once again. For now, though, Alex Carter was content to be the human who had once held the sword and let it go.